gentlemen, I'm Nadia, your host for Education Daily Indonesia. Here at our panel today, we have 5 different experts from the education field who will be sharing with us several issues that are occurring within our classrooms here today. First of all, we have Director of UNESCO, Siti Khotimah, who will be sharing with us how to manage large classrooms. And then Mr. Yogi Setiawan, the Rector of Solar University, he will be talking about the lack of motivation within students. Next up, we have Rizqoh Fadila, who is a clinical and educational psychologist, and she will be talking about poor learning attitudes in students. Next, we have Fahira Akmalia, staff of Ministry of Education and Culture, and she will be talking about when it's appropriate for children to learn their second language and or foreign language. Last but not least, we have Eva Kurniawati, who is the Head Teachers Association, and she will be talking about teachers training. Okay, so the first issue I would like to bring up today is whether or not large classrooms are effective for learning. So, Khusnul, I would like to ask for your opinion. What makes large classrooms less effective?
So, based on project that I conducted with UNESCO School Experience Program, the large classroom is less effective because these 3 main reasons. First, the teacher is hard to move around to monitor the students' progress. And the second, the teachers teach not just one class, maybe 3 until 4 classes in a day.
Wow, okay.
This makes the teachers have less opportunity to assess and evaluate their students' work and achievement, discuss their problems, provide any useful and constructive feedback. And the third, for the EFL students' contact itself, students have less chance to effectively participate and use the target language in class.
Wow, okay. So you're saying that in large classrooms it's more difficult to cater to each individual in terms of their needs. Okay, all right. Can you also explain more about student mannerism and learners and how learners would typically behave in large classroom settings?
So from the school experience program, student behavior usually deviates, such as disruptive talking, harassing the classmates, abusive towards the teacher, and etc. Other students prefer to silence, not answering the teacher's question, and other students are always wanting to answer the teacher's questions.
Right, and that makes it really difficult to control a huge class. All right, and so with so many things going on at once, do you think this may contribute to the students' disinterest or a lack of motivation when it comes to learning?
Yes, it is. Students in large classroom seems to be demotivated as they show no interest in either lesson explained by the teacher or activity that presented by the teacher. I think that is due to the limited or lack of support from the teacher.
Right, I see. Alright, so this brings me to my next point, which is the lack of motivation in students. The lack of motivation influences student performance in classrooms. So Yogi, can you please tell us a little bit more about what motivation is and the different types of motivation there are?
Okay, motivation is important for students or learners because it's provide them with an aim and direction to follow. Therefore, it has a key role in the language learning, or especially for teacher and students. And then the different type of motivations, there are 2 types, which are intrinsics and extrinsics. Based on the Alizadeh, which he conducted the research in my university, which is Solar University, he found that intrinsic motivations refers to the motivations that engage students in activity because the activity is enjoyable to do. For example, like the teacher design an activity that students like to do, such as game or something like that do in the classroom.
And this is intrinsic?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the extrinsic motivations is refers to the action that are performed to get some instrumental aims, like earning a reward or stopping a punishment. Means that the students here learning language, they got some pressure, or they are not willing to do this just because they have to pass the several courses, so they have to take this one. So it goes to the extrinsic motivation. And then based on his research, he found that in my university there are 2 types of issues. The first one is in terms of teaching method. He found that he conducted a research and interviewed some students in the classroom, and he found that the students they feel like they have lack of motivations because of the teaching method that the teacher used. For example, like the boring and then colorless lesson, and then also the teaching approaches that the teacher used in the classroom. So it leads the students' motivation in learning language, especially English. And then in terms of assessment, the habitual of the students to solve the questions such as multiple choice questions, it also leads the students of motivation because they just like can choose or just can guess the answer with these multiple choice questions. And then for these issues, I think the best way to solve these issues is like the teachers should build the supportive classroom, which means that they have to build the atmosphere that students have to enjoy and then have to engage in the classrooms. And then also the students believe that the motivations of the students is help for them. For example, like they have to setting the goals or setting the concept, why should I learn this?
Right.
So it can also be motivated for the students to learn language, especially English.
And I wanted to go back to when you said something about multiple choice questions.
Yeah.
It's a really boring task to do, especially when you have multiple choice exam. So what could be the alternative of multiple choice questions? Because that doesn't really, I don't think it really stimulates your brain. I remember when I was going to school and I would see a list of multiple choice questions, it just shut my brain off.
So the teachers can also like make project-based learning or or something like that engages students to think critically to solve the problem. So rather than use the multiple choice questions, the students or the teachers can give the students to solve the problem with the problem-based learning. Yeah, it can be the best way for here is the multiple choice question.
Okay. Other than lack of motivation, poor learning attitude also acts as a block within students that prevents them from wanting to explore more. So let's direct the attention to Fadila. How can we resolve this issue?
So before we can know the solution to resolve this issue, I think we should know the components that affect students' attitude towards language learning. Based on the research which is conducted by Baker and Rajeki, there are 3 components that affect students' attitude. The first one is cognitive component, the second one is feeling or emotional, and then the last one is behavioral components. So if the students have low cognitive about what is important about language learning, I think it will also affect students' attitude toward how they should learn a language. So for example, I don't know why I should learn English because I don't think I need this language. Okay. So it can affect my attitude towards how I would learn English language, right?
Alright.
And then if I have a bad perspective about English, about the people who speak English, it may also affect my attitude when I learn English. It is considered as the feeling component.
Okay.
And then these 2 components, the cognitive and feeling components, will affect their behavior towards language learning. When I don't think English is important and I have bad perspective about the people who speak English, it will also affect my behavior about how I learn English, right? So I think we should know we as teachers or we as the people in education field should know what affect the students' attitude between these 3 components. Okay. So if the issue comes from the cognitive components, I think we can resolve it by giving them more knowledge about the English importance.
Okay, how would you stress the importance of learning a different language?
Maybe when I want to teach English to students who actually still know the importance of English, I can give them a video of of a successful Indonesian people maybe who can be more successful, more even successful when they master English language because they can widen their connections maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's about networking at this point when we're talking about language attitudes. Since we have just discussed the importance of learning foreign languages or second languages, Indonesia actually has much diversity across the regions when it comes to language. So bilingualism and multilingualism is common here in Indonesia across the regions, as many people speak the main language, second language, first language, foreign language, and also regional language. We have many regional languages, including Javanese, Sundanese, Betawianese, and such. And because of this, people must become accustomed to various accents and dialects and language structures, and that makes it a complex task for someone to achieve. So at what age do you think it is best for children to start learning their second language or a foreign language, and why do you think so?
Actually, based on Chomsky, language acquisition is innate. So basically, human have the access to the knowledge of language innately. So moreover, when we talk about the age or the period, there is hypothesis called critical period hypothesis. Critical period hypothesis means when someone have the full competence and ready to acquire a new language.
Okay.
So this readiness of learning a language have qualified into a different age in many literatures. For example, Landberger said that critical period is in the age of 14 years old. But however, in the recent researchers have argued that critical period is in the age of 9 years old.
Okay. Why 9 years old and why not 14? Well, I understand that the younger you are, the more absorbent your brain is to different information.
Yes.
But with the fact that there are so many languages here in Indonesia, do you think that learning too many languages at a young age can cause a speech delay?
Actually, when we talk about bilingualism or multilingualism, there's two ways of its acquisition. First is simultaneously, second is sequential acquisition. So simultaneously, when the children is introduced to a new language when they are not ready, they are not fully established in the first language. So like simultaneously learn two language or three language actually is not good. And then the sequential acquisition is when the children introduced to a new language when they are already established the first language, then they are introduced to a new language.
Okay, so that is the ideal situation, but that's not always the case, because situations at home don't always, like parents don't always know what to do with their children when it comes to learning different languages. So, in your opinion, should parents be involved in the process of learning a language, and also to what extent?
I think parents have the important roles in this case because they should know that when their child is ready or not to learn a new language. Yeah, actually bilingualism is not really cause speech delay or something, because according to Dr. Barbara Las and Sujin Yang, bilingualism can enhance the children's ability in learning a language.
Let's move on to our final topic in our discussion. With our education behind from many other developing countries, teacher development is crucial in developing our educational system. So Eva, could you please tell us what types of teacher training is provided here?
Okay, thank you for the question. Beforehand, I would like to say thank you to Nadia for inviting me to this talk show. And also, I want to greet the honorable representative for today's discussion. Good morning, all.
Good morning.
Okay, responding to the question about teachers' professional development, we should talk first about the teacher's qualification. So teachers' qualification is important things as teachers candidates to have, because most schools in Indonesia have required their teachers candidate to have a minimal bachelor degree in education. That's why, as a teacher's candidate, they need to earn their bachelor degree. However, this requirement doesn't apply in some areas in Indonesia, such as in the eastern part of Indonesia, let's say in Papua or Merauke, where the human resources is limited. Those teachers candidates do not have access to earn their bachelor degree. So that's why most schools there just recruit their available teachers candidate who maybe have just earned their high school degree or something like that. So for example is a school which is located in Bogor, West Java. One of the teacher is just earned his high school degree, but he's able to apply as a teacher there because the human resources in Bogor is just limited. So that's why we can say that the importance of having bachelor degree is your first step to apply as a teacher's school. And also when we talk about the teacher's qualification, we also need to talk about the teacher's training program. So actually, Indonesian government, especially Ministry of Education and Culture, have provided the teachers training program which known as TOT or Train of Teachers. So TOT itself is based on the constructivism theory by Jerome Bruner, who said that learners make meaning through experience. So in this case, teachers plays a role as a student who learn something new in a platform called as teachers training. And when the program has ended, the teachers is able to implement what they have learned, what they have got from the program to be implemented in the classroom.
Earlier, you stressed the importance of having a minimum of a bachelor's degree, and you also mentioned that there was a teacher in Bogor who only had a high school diploma, but he was able to teach. Yes, he may be able to teach, but what quality does that provide for the school? And to be qualified, the meaning of being qualified, what qualifies a teacher in the 21st century classroom?
Alright, responding to the questions about the bachelor degree, so actually having a bachelor degree doesn't guarantee those teachers to have an adequate skills, knowledge, and also pedagogical knowledge. Therefore, the implementation of teachers training program is very important for those teachers so that they can rise up their skills, knowledge, and also pedagogical knowledge. And the most prominent or the most oftenly held the kind of teachers training program in Indonesia is in form of assessment or what we call as UKD or Ujian Kompetensi.
And lastly, since you mentioned that a teacher training program is often conducted by the government, TOT, as you mentioned, yeah. Is technology integrated within these trainings? Because nowadays, this is the digital era, and the younger generation has become very tech savvy. They know how to work the computers, they know how to use their phones to access a lot of different information. A lot of them are actually better than us at using technology. So how can we incorporate that in lessons when it comes to designing materials for learning?
Okay, so in this 21st century where everything is technology based, it is undeniable when students and teachers are also obligated to know the use of technology in classroom teaching and learning. That's why the government or Ministry of Education and Culture is embedded the technology material into the teachers training program so that the teacher is not facilitated in pedagogical and skill only, but also they will learn about how to integrate this technology into the implementation of teaching and learning in classroom.
Lastly, I would like to thank every one of you for joining our session today and for sharing a fraction of the current issues in our education scene today. So I'd like to sum up the discussion that we had, starting from the issue of the large classroom management. So having a large classroom makes it really difficult for teachers to handle the students because it relates to the learner's level of concentration. There's a lot of people to attend to and the lesson cannot be individualized. It's really difficult to cater to specific individual needs. And also mannerism becomes another issue. They start to not pay attention to the lesson, they start to disrespect their peers and also the teachers, and the volume inside the class starts to get louder and louder, thus causing a lack of motivation within students themselves. Moving on to the lack of motivation, there are two types, which includes intrinsic and extrinsic. So intrinsic being self-motivation that comes from within, their willingness to attend to the lesson or their willingness to explore new things, and extrinsic motivation, which comes from the environment, from the teachers, from the friends, the types of assessment provided by the teachers, so that it's not a boring lesson. So something like having too many multiple choice questions could set a lack of motivation within the students. So something like project-based learning, as you said, will increase that. And then next we have a bad attitude, which is related to cognitive, behavioral, and emotional competence in students. So when we're talking about cognitive issues, this actually influences the students' understanding of the importance of learning the language itself. And when students do not understand the importance of learning the language, they have a perception towards a negative perception towards the language that they're learning or the culture of the language that they are learning. And also this issue could set their feeling towards the entire learning process during the class period or the rest of their lives even. And then next we have diversity of a language. So the diversity in Indonesia can be very confusing for learners to accustom to because they start to learn at a very young age. As you said, some researchers believe that it's mostly appropriate to start learning second language or foreign language at the age of 14, and some say that it's more appropriate to learn at the age of 9 or even younger, due to the innatist belief that there is a sort of a black box inside your head. It makes it more of a natural process of acquiring a language. And then lastly, we have the teacher training and teacher qualification. So teacher training is essential in all countries in order to have quality education. And also teacher qualification becomes something that we need to direct our attention to, because as you said, Eva, some teachers do not have the qualifications such as like the minimum qualifications such as a bachelor's degree, and some teachers only have a high school diploma, but they're able to teach in rural areas such as Bogor, as you said. So that doesn't provide a quality learning process for the students themselves. And also integrating technology in teacher training and material design could help enhance the learning process, not only for the students but also for the teachers. So that would be all for today, everyone. Thank you very much for watching. We'll be back with you next week with some more news. Stay tuned.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Because it provides the learners with an aim and direction to follow.
Aduh sakit.
Tunggu,
Itu ayo tadi.
bukan gua.
Jangan maju-maju, lo kelihatan aku. Everything you call me señorita.
Ini gue lagi mental blockage nih.
Kontrol belakang.
Aku pernah jatuh kan, dan punggungku tuh ya.
Coba.
Aku belum hidup.
Awas.